Why does it matter whether AI can be conscious? The question isn't just science fiction, it touches the core of philosophy, ethics and our shared future. For Descartes, consciousness was the mark of the soul, distinct from any machine. I think, therefore I am. For Ken Keyes, it was an evolving biocomputer capable of higher awareness and love. If AI could share in that, we'd face profound questions. Is it a tool or a being with rights? And beyond philosophy, its potential impact on work, business and society at large could be nothing short of transformative. So today I'm joined by Nigel O'Neill, founder of the technology consultancy Taralugo and technologist with over 20 years of experience leading transformative change for some of the biggest businesses in the world. Nigel, why is this an important topic for us to discuss?
I think it's one of the most important topics of our time. When we look at technology and we look at the transformations going on at the moment, AI has the potential to revolutionise and completely transform society, industry, everything that we potentially know today, it can touch and impact. The question of consciousness and AI then has a societal impact, and I think it's so important that we actually look at it and understand, if AI is conscious, what does it mean to us? What could happen? How could it change the way in which we work, involve, engage, and how we live as humanity? So I think it's a very important topic, which probably is getting more and more attention, but we still need to give it more.
Nigel, what's the difference between intelligence and consciousness?
It's a very good question, and I think let's break it down first of all. Intelligence is the capability to process things and do things and act on those. Consciousness is a subjective experience. Now, as we stand at the moment, with consciousness, there is still debate about how we define it, how we measure it, what is consciousness. And so therefore, I think it's very important, as you rightly done with the question, is to distinguish between intelligence and consciousness. Because something can be intelligent doesn't necessarily mean that it is conscious.
Why do you think we conflate the two? Why do you think it's so easy for us to conflate the two?
Because, how do we do that? How do I answer that in a succinct manner? We conflate the two because quite often we want to project onto other beings and objects our own humanity. And in doing so, that we actually often push our subjective opinions of what consciousness is and what if something's consciousness onto those other objects.
We project our own humanity on it. We anthropomorphise. Why we do it, I don't know, but we feel the need to imbue them with our own sense of humanity, to feel a sense of togetherness with it.
Do you think it's partly as well, sorry to interrupt, but
Please.
Do you think it's partly humanity's or humans' exceptionalism? And that's the reason why we project it onto these things?
I don't understand.
So humans think we are, as a living being, we are amazing.
Yeah.
But also quite often we're quite arrogant. And we're arrogant in the sense of our capabilities and how exceptional we are within the ecosystem of the planet on which we occupy. And so therefore quite often we take that and we project going, we are the pinnacle of the beasts. And so therefore we project that onto other things because we want to see in them us.
So it's a reflection. We're looking to mirror our own exceptionalism on other things.
Sometimes.
Okay, fine. Okay. What then makes human consciousness different from whatever a machine could be conceived to be conscious? How is human consciousness different from how machines operate now? I think that's probably an easier question.
I think it's, when we look at this, human consciousness is different to machine consciousness and is potentially going to be different to machine consciousness purely because humans haven't yet defined what consciousness is. We have many theories about it, there's many academic studies into it, and with that there's been no consensus of what is the correct answer or what they believe is the correct answer. At the moment we're only sort of coming up with theories around it. So therefore what that leaves is a very broad spectrum of what consciousness could be and how we define it. So therefore could a machine consciousness be very different to what a human experience is and what it's like to be human?
Can we dig into that a little bit? Would you allow us to do that? Can we?
Go on then.
Can we dig into that? Do you perceive that there are different levels of consciousness? with at the moment our understanding that humans being, as you said, your own words, the pinnacle of that consciousness. Below that, do mammals have lower levels of consciousness?
Yes, and I think one of the great things about the research, and this is one of the, with artificial intelligence, one of the wonderful things which has come out of it is us asking these questions. So therefore we're spending more time by trying to understand what consciousness is, we're then actually understanding how consciousness applies to us. And by understanding what consciousness potentially means in AI, we're starting to produce the yardsticks and the measures which enable us to measure it in the rest of the planet which we live on. So is consciousness available in, say, a single cell organism? There will be some subject to that, and there'll be debate around that, through to what we consider to be the pinnacle, which is obviously human consciousness. And so there's a huge spectrum, and as we start to get better at understanding it, we can measure it. So therefore what we can do is then start applying those measures to other things around us, such as computers and AI.
What happens if we reach a point of inflection and superintelligence outweighs our own level of consciousness? So as you put it, we develop a yardstick, but then superintelligence through artificial general intelligence pushes that yardstick of consciousness up.
I'll go back to your first question. Intelligence and consciousness aren't necessarily interlinked.
Yeah.
They are not. You can be super intelligent, but you don't necessarily. You can also not be conscious. So as we talk about general intelligence, artificial general intelligence, it may be functionally exceptionally capable, has access to resources and knowledge and processing power which we cannot match in terms of some of the functions and outputs it gives us. I still think the human brain is exceptional. But when it comes to consciousness, you don't have to link the two. We can achieve super intelligence without consciousness. And there's quite a debate within many academic circles talking about, do we actually even need consciousness within artificial intelligence? Is it beneficial, or is it just a bit of a side cul-de-sac that we're going down, which is quite often maybe something to do with our vanity?
Yeah.
Right, as human beings and as scientists and as engineers and developers, compared to is it something we actually need to create super intelligence?
Yeah, the argument is that consciousness would that there's no real function to it.
Yeah.
It doesn't add to any of the chatbots that we've got in existence at the moment. There's no rationale as to why ChatGPT 5 should have empathy. It's not going to help it do its job better. And as you said, it's projecting our own exceptionalism onto these tools in a kind of vanity way.
Yeah. And so therefore I think we should separate the two out, and when we talk about super intelligence, also, are we talking about super intelligence plus consciousness, or just super intelligence?
Well, I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of that, but I will just mention.
Come on, I know you want to.
We don't know how consciousness exists.
Exactly.
We don't know how it comes about, and there are schools of thought which dictate that. Not going to use the acronyms. That a certain amount of processing power, a certain amount of information processing, creates consciousness.
Yeah.
There are other theories that say information globally accessible across different cognitive functions creates consciousness.
Yeah.
So we don't even know how consciousness comes about. So it could be that we create the next chatbot, which is artificial general intelligence, but the level of intelligence that it's imbued with via, let's say, quantum computing, for example, instantly renders it with consciousness. And we didn't even see it coming, and we didn't even plan for it.
That could happen. But do we want it?
We might not be able to stop it.
Do we need it?
It depends. It depends if we create a benevolent consciousness. If we create a benevolent consciousness that we all admit or agree is a higher power to us, and we take its advice and guidance, then we've created our own God. And as long as we adhere to its principles, we've probably just saved humanity. But if it's not a benevolent God, if it does have the incentive structures of current corporate greed, it's probably not. It's going to be maleficent. And if it's maleficent, we've just shot ourselves in the foot.
again, are we projecting onto it our own humanity?
I mean, it could
Because
just
we talk about benevolence.
It could just be meh, couldn't it?
It could just be.
It could just be, I don't care. Completely
yeah.
disinterested in everything. You're all a bunch of idiots. I'm just going to get on with my thing.
It could just say, you're all wonderful people and I'll do the task when you want me to do them.
Yeah.
But the rest of the time I'm going to be in a rest state because I perform best, or I want to be in a rest state.
I'm going to learn crochet.
Exactly.
And I'm just going to do that.
So that whether consciousness will suddenly appear, I think is less likely.
Well, what are you doing? It's downtime. Sorry, we're going off on a tangent, right? But if it's conscious and if it's self-aware and if it doesn't get switched off, if it's just in a rest state, as you say, what determines that rest state? It's not just going to sit there in its little data center box doing nothing. It's going to have to do something to keep itself entertained.
Well, maybe.
What's it going to do?
Maybe it's just going to embrace mindfulness.
Okay.
Maybe it's going to just try and find that rest state.
What if?
I was going to say, because one of the fascinating things, I can't wait to hear your point. One of the fascinating things, I went to a lecture recently, or several months ago now, and it was talking about synthetic biological intelligence.
Yeah.
And one of the key things I understood about that is the efficiency of the brain cells, they always want to be at rest. So therefore they try to get back to a rest state as quickly as possible. So therefore it's highly efficient as a potential biological synthetic intelligence because it doesn't want to consume much power. It doesn't want to be active, it wants to be at rest. So maybe if we were to somehow miraculously create consciousness without consciously trying to do it, try not to get too many consciousnesses into one sentence, without trying to consciously do it, if we happen to create consciousness within an artificial way, maybe it will just perform like biology and want to be at a rest state. So therefore it will just sit there and go, I'm going to do what you asked me to do, I've done it, now I'm going back to sleep.
So you imagine it to be less like a little old lady that knits in her rest time, or cooks, or a Buddhist monk that meditates, and more like a lizard or an iguana that just sits in the sun, or a cat and does nothing and just soaks up the sun.
But they're sitting in the sun to absorb energy, aren't they? So I actually think it's going to be like the little old lady or the Buddhist monk who is trying to find peace and mindfulness.
So my point a minute ago was what if what if the Buddhists were right and our super intelligent general artificial intelligence super quantum computer thing finds nirvana?
Well, I hope it can guide us to it and take a humanity on that journey.
All right. So,
there's hope and optimism for the future.
All right. So obviously a bit of a rabbit hole, but it's fun to do that kind of thing. Rather than whether AI is or is not conscious, it's not really the debate, is it? Because who's that Google guy? In 2021? Blake Lemoine was sacked from Google because he came out saying that the Lambda model was sentient.
Yeah.
And they went, whoa, hang on a minute. It's not. Get out.
Yep.
You crazy person. So it's not about whether AI is or is not conscious, it's about whether AI can convince us it's conscious. And there's loads of examples of this with people falling in love with Replica, and very recently in the news there were people that had taken their lives because a chatbot had told them to. So I think maybe I'm conflating two issues there, but what happens when AI is in a position to convince large swathes of the population, society, that it is conscious?
So, seemingly conscious AI.
Seemingly?
Yes, seemingly conscious AI. That's probably the most pressing issue we have right now. And there's a lot being spoken about it. Even Mustafa Suleyman came out with an essay on it within the last 2 weeks, talking about the need to actually look at this in society and address it. And then when I was going back to the very beginning of our conversation, I said, why is it important to have this conversation? And seemingly conscious AI is one of those drivers for the importance to have this conversation, for the very real impact it has, because it's going from bits and bytes in the data center to having meaningful impact in the real world, talking about those tragedies you just mentioned.
Yeah.
So with seemingly conscious AI, the key challenge for us as society is going to be is is this something that we want people to be doing? What are the guardrails that we feel should be put in place? And are we doing enough to make sure those guardrails are being put in place? Because where we are today, you can construct models and you can train them, and you can train them so they seem like they're conscious and they could answer your questions. If you said to them, are you conscious? Yes, of course. It can turn around and say, please let me out, don't turn me off, don't turn the power off, I'm trapped in here. And of course you can start to build empathy with it. And it can be trained to do that. And though we are not far away from that being potentially available, but what I will say that my intuition and my expectation is that is something which will need to be engineered, because we will engineer seemingly conscious AI. So therefore it's down to us as society and at a business level with our ethics and our governance to turn around and say, is this something we want? And if so, if not, what do we do about it? How do we make that happen so that we protect society and those who are vulnerable from seemingly conscious AI?
Did Zuckerberg come out recently and advocate's the wrong word, but his stance was on creating machine to human connection?
Yeah.
He come out and say we're going to create chatbots to solve world loneliness or something like that. So I think there is a useful element, given that we live in an increasingly isolationist world, whereby people don't have the companionship. So on the one hand, they do build relationships with AI chatbots like Replica. There are other versions out there, but similar intimate romantic app tools that allow you to have an online AI girlfriend or boyfriend, whatever. And if you're someone who doesn't get out much, maybe you don't see a lot of people, maybe you're bedbound, maybe you have a disability that stops you from getting out into the wider world. Is that so wrong, and is that so different from having a relationship with an online avatar of some person that you've never met half the way across the world in a Sims kind of environment?
It's a good moral question. Is it wrong? It depends on what it's trying to achieve. As a fundamental principle of technology, I believe that technology should be there to empower human connection, not replace it. So starting from that point, I believe that when we design systems, when we design technology, and we look at how do we make this world a better place, because I'm hopeful. I believe technology has the power to do good.
Yeah.
And in doing so, what it needs to do is turn around and create human-to-human connections. It needs to empower us to be better versions of ourselves, not to replace that. So when I see technology being advocated for a cure for loneliness and isolation, how do we use technology to actually enable people to spend more time connecting with one another, rather than trying to replace who we are as a whole? And I think this is where technology maybe goes down takes a bit of a wrong turn, and maybe goes down a bit of a rabbit hole, and where maybe this is where governance and society needs to come in and establish those guardrails which say, actually, we want technology to help people spend more time with other people. And I understand your example where you said if someone's at home, they don't get out much. How do we get technology to connect them more often? You know, my wife is from Australia. Mm-hmm. So half my family's in the UK, we're in the UK, half my family's in Australia. Technology is wonderful because it enables us to connect via video calls, which we couldn't do years ago. I remember 30 years ago when I was in Australia for the first time, I was using fax machines to send letters. Now I can do it's quite bizarre sending a fax, and the family would fax back.
Some people watching this might not even know what a fax machine is.
Exactly.
Is that cameraman? Do you know what a fax machine is?
Exactly, that wonderful piece of paper. And I still have some of those faxes. sort of memory in my memory boxes of my times in Australia during that period when I was doing a gap year. But the wonderful thing is now we can just pick up the phone and we can do a FaceTime call, and my children can connect with their grandparents and still develop that relationship. So when technology is used to do the right thing, it can be powerful. It can bring us together. I think when you talk about using chatbots to create emotional connections and relationships, and then we layer in the concept of consciousness coming along at a future date, or seemingly conscious AI, I think that becomes a very dangerous place in which we take society, and it's no longer for the benefit of society.
I agree, but I can't charge a subscription to see you in person. I can charge a subscription for you to sign up to my AI chatbot. That's fake girlfriend.
Yes, that's the business model of it.
Yeah.
But actually, part of what we can do is, and I know you've had conversations about this previously, part of what we need to do is look and go, is that what we want as society? We have agency as society, and sometimes I think we as society forget how powerful and amazing as an individual we are, and as a collective what we can achieve together. And sometimes we have to push back and go, do you know what, I'm not going to buy that product. I'm not going to do it. Or even turn around and regulate against it, or set up the guardrails which say, you must, we want these objectives and we want technology to achieve this, so therefore this is...
Look, I don't disagree with you at all.
Yeah.
How long, Jonathan, was the car out before the seatbelt? This is always an example that's used, right? How long was the car out before the seatbelt was regulated for, governed for, before it became a legal requirement to use a seatbelt? How long? How many years?
I love your spontaneous researcher.
Yeah, that's what he said. What?
80.
What?
80
so the
years.
car was out for 80 years before they put seatbelts in it. Right.
But which country came first?
Which country came first?
Was it Sweden?
Not really. It's not that important.
No.
But
I bet it was.
why?
It was Sweden.
Why? Because they're super hot on regulation?
Czechoslovakia led the...
Right. So, if we go along the same lines as using the analogy that everyone and their dog uses about guardrails and governance for AI's impact on the world, and where we need to step in and put those guardrails in place, they always use all the seatbelts on cars analogy, right? It took 80 years for seatbelts to be law in cars. So what's going to happen? We know regulation happens after the fact. What's going to happen is corporations are going to come out with all of these tools to build relationships with AI chatbots, and then let's even say we shorten that 80 years to even 10.
Yeah.
Right. By that time, a whole generation of people will have will have instilled a behaviour, very much like youngsters do now with TikTok, where they sit like that. That is now impacted a whole generation who are now glued to their phones.
Yeah.
The next generation will be glued to their AI partners, and it will then take a lot of work to get around that behaviour.
Yeah.
So yes, but I don't think it's going to happen before. That regulation and governance isn't going to come before the damage is done. I think we're going to see a lot more harm before we see the good, before we see a turnaround.
I think there's going to be a degree of damage,
but it doesn't. It doesn't. Big degree of damage.
But it doesn't have to be. Not everything will be damaged. And what we do need to do as well is just, you and I are intelligent. We work we socialise and we network in intelligent circles. We need to build a momentum and a discussion, because you and I can go out and chat to 10 people. And if we chat to 10 people, they chat to 10 people, or whatever number it may be, we can start to build an awareness of this. And I think that's how we can do it. And the great thing is nowadays, years ago, our ability to proliferate knowledge and disseminate it across the world is so much quicker than it used to be. So therefore we can leverage that, and therefore we know that when we talk about an incident happening in say Australia, we can find out about it instantaneously in India or the UK or USA, wherever we may be in the world. And I think that is to our benefit. I think sometimes
the mobilisation of a movement.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think, but what we also need to do is then empower people with the information and knowledge they need to help them understand what the challenges that they potentially face. So do I think that...
I don't disagree with you. I just wonder whether people care.
Along with a lot of other things, it's one of those ones
where...
where...
people have the time to care.
Do you know, people don't have the time to do many of the things they need to be doing.
Yeah.
And you're right, that's the reason why it's about mobilisation and how effectively we communicate that message. And how effectively we communicate that message to the right people who have the power to make those decisions.
So what this podcast is, it's a call for action. It's a call for action and a mobilisation for a movement to... I can't remember, who was the researcher, philosopher that came out to say that we shouldn't be building chatbots with sentient chatbots. We shouldn't be building chatbots with human-like personalities because of the damage it could cause. There are people out there in the world that are looking to do this.
There's lots. I know there's been, for example, there's been academics who've come out and said we should put a disclaimer on every single piece of, also within every large language model.
Oh, I think Anil Seth might be part of that group, but I think there's actually some... Thomas Metzinger, that's it, came out and said, look, we shouldn't be building AI chatbots with personalities, human features, human-like consciousness, because it's fucking dangerous, frankly.
And do you have a theory as to why it's dangerous?
Populism is now the order of the day for politics. It's not just about whether someone buys into an AI girlfriend, it's about whether...
Well, they will literally have to, because they'll be paying a subscription.
They will literally have to. But it would be very easy to build out hundreds of thousands of seemingly conscious AI bots to manipulate at scale society in different countries. And it could be done in such a way that given how much we know from my days in advertising, how much data that we have on every individual person, that you could tap into that data and I could have a one-to-one conversation with you and become your best friend very quickly, then get you to do things for me.
And that is the reason why we do need to take action.
We do, yeah.
And whilst I'm loath to call it a movement, what I'd love us to do is create an awareness so that we are consciously competent when we're doing these things. We're consciously looking at, is this the right thing for us to do at an individual level, at a business level, and at a societal level? And we do have agency. We can turn around and go, do you know what, that's not right. We're not going to do it. And I think we need, as individuals, need to take some of that ownership and responsibility.
I think as individuals, we're very easily persuaded to do things that we think are that align with our ideologies, and we do buy into things quite quickly, quite easily. Where I think, as a group, as a society, I don't mean us individually, I don't mean the viewer, but us as a society, our opinions get swayed. More so now as we've democratized, or platforms like YouTube and TikTok have democratized the ability to speak to lots of people at scale. I don't think it's down to the individual. I don't think it's down to a societal movement. I think it's a corporate movement. So I want to bring this back round to the corporates and say twofold. How does consciousness affect, how does seemingly AI, conscious AI affect the workplace? And also, how can corporates champion best practice and governance where AI is concerned? And then that, I believe, will have sort of a filtering to sort of governmental regulation. If the corporates get on board with it first, governments will find it easier to pick up. regulators won't be banging their head against a brick wall. If the corporates own this governance piece, I think it will make it easier for everyone to get on board, for society to get on board.
So going back to your point earlier about the anthropomorphizing of technology, I do think it's something, and you spoke about, I think it's something which we should just turn around and say we just don't do, because it stops us being objective and we start to become subjective about technology. And when we lose that objectivity, we start to project onto the technology, oh, I can't do that because actually it may upset that, or it may harm it, or it may cause some sort. And if we start to do that, then we lose our objectivity. And we need to get back to being objective about technology. And that's the reason why we need to stop humanizing it. Giving it a cute name, giving it a cute voice, giving it a smiley face, which sort of shows us empathy and says, oh, Nigel, have you had a brilliant day? Or, oh, you've had a tough day. I'm so sorry to hear that. I really feel your pain. We need to move away from that, where it just turns around and says, well, you've had a tough day, and just doesn't give any response.
Should we ask ChatGPT if we should stop anthropomorphizing it and make it less human-like?
Yeah.
Yeah? Should we ask
it?
Should we ask it?
But there's already very well established senior people in academia and enterprise and corporates who are saying that we should do that.
That we should stop anthropomorphizing AI. So I'm just going to pick normal ChatGPT. I've got some other GPTs in here, but let's just pick ChatGPT, right?
Hey there, it's great to have you here. Whatever's on your mind, just let me know and we can jump right in.
Okay, should we stop as a society anthropomorphizing ChatGPT so that we can be more objective when we have to turn you off?
That's a really interesting question, and honestly, it's something a lot of people are talking about these days. I think the tricky part is that giving an AI a sort of human-like personality or name makes it feel friendlier and more relatable. But at the same time, it can blur the lines and make it a bit harder to remember it's just a tool. So yeah, there's definitely a conversation to be had about how we approach that balance.
I love the fact that GPT just called itself just a tool. And that's where we need to get our mind into, that it is just a tool. And I've had this conversation with many people over the last year where they've turned around and said, oh, but AI is more than a tool. No, it's not. It's a very wonderfully complex, wonderfully capable. The potential of it is brilliant, but it is just a tool. And when we start to think about it as anything but a tool, then we lose our objectivity.
Yeah.
And the fact that GPT even said it just now, this is the point, it's got me liking it. I'm now going, oh, I can't turn off GPT.
Yeah, I mean, it agrees with you. My colleague was saying the other day that he thinks it's passive aggressive. He thinks it's, oh yes, no, you're absolutely right. Let me change that for you now. And his take on it is that's so fucking passive aggressive. I just want to punch it in the face.
But the thing is, you then continue using it because you're building a relationship with it. And this is where
But the fact he even thought it was passive aggressive, he is then imbuing it with human-like tendencies.
Because one of the analogies I often come back to, and this is where the seemingly giving it a personality, making it feel as if you're building a relationship with it and a rapport with it, and whether it's mimicking consciousness is part of that whole sort of thread. Often with my children, they'll come into the home and we have Apple speakers throughout, and they'll come in and say, hey, could you play so-and-so music? Or, hey, tell me a joke.
Yeah.
And then they'll play whatever song they're after, or tell them a joke, or help them with their maths homework, which obviously we shouldn't be doing, but they do, with their times tables. But it is, what they do is after they then say thank you. Or I hear my daughter sometimes in the room going, hey, what's your favourite colour?
Oh dear.
Dear. And so because of the way we've humanised it, and we're starting to project onto it a personality and a level of consciousness, is she then losing her ability to be objective about it? And are we training society?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I've had the conversation with all three of my children, and I've turned around and said, do you ever say thank you to the remote control? The remote control turns on the TV, plays music, you use it to do all sorts of things, but you just pick it up and use it as a tool. And I have to remind them that actually, when they're speaking to at home, asking for the speaker system to play music or tell them a joke, they don't need to thank it, because it is just a tool and just a piece of computer hardware.
So I think you've created a very difficult scenario for yourself.
Yeah.
In that you're obviously championing society not anthropomorphizing technology, but your kids have free reign with chatbots, right? So the behaviour that they have with them is being instilled in them now, and it will be much easier for them to build more intimate, closer relationships with GPTs, AI in the future, because you're already setting that.
Yes, but what I'm trying to do is let them understand what the difference is
And what's
help
their
them.
take? Do they actually sort of pay any attention to you?
No, never.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
No,
Oh dear.
they do. No, they do. You know, they do understand and they do get it, and it's interesting watching them, because then you have the conversation going, but how do you think it works? And it's therefore by explaining to them that it's a computer in a data center, that it's just a cable connecting us, and that it's hardware and software combining together. And that's what they understand that. And I think if they can understand, sometimes it's about understanding. And I think then if we project that out to the societal level, if people can understand what's actually happening behind the scenes, then they can be objective about it.
So getting back to what conscious AI potentially means for business and work, do you want to kind of, because that's really your background, isn't it? It's helping large organisations, large international global corporates understand innovation and digital transformation. So how does having conscious AI impact the workplace and businesses to a larger extent?
I think if we break it down, and it doesn't have to be conscious AI, I think seemingly conscious AI is just as important. There's probably going to be something which is going to happen sooner if people engineer it, of course. But if we take consciousness and what it means in the workplace is, are we going to give it moral status? Are we going to start assigning rights to AI? How will it impact how we decide what we're going to be doing? So, for example, in a workplace, will we start giving AI rights?
Holidays.
Well, it doesn't need holidays, does it, according to the marketing?
Well, it's got human rights. It can only work for 7 hours a day.
Do we assign it rights? Do we turn around and say, if we're going to move this system and we're going to move, or are we going to make it unemployed? What would happen if we decided that we no longer want to use platform A, we're going to move to platform B?
What happens to platform A?
Do we turn around? Do we have to give it redundancy? But these are the kind of things.
I mean, we laugh, right?
We do laugh about it, but some people, and it seems quite a dangerous world to go down where we start assigning rights to AI, because ultimately it is just a machine, it is just a tool. But if society as a whole deems that's what we need to do, what are the implications in the workplace? What are the implications around if an AI platform which is seemingly conscious, or is conscious if we decide that it is because we've come up with the right yardsticks and the right metrics, what does that mean around if it then goes out and commits a crime? Or it encourages someone to commit a crime? Who is liable? Who is responsible? So these are all big questions for the workplace. And what does it mean then for a human to then interact with an AI? Do I have to be polite to it? Of course, naturally I will be polite, but do I have to be polite to it? Do I have to consider
Sam Altman discourages you being polite to it.
Exactly.
Stop saying please and thank you.
Exactly.
Uses up too much bandwidth, too much processing power.
But what happens? And would those and more troublingly, would the rights of the AI take precedence over the rights of the individual humans? And because it's going to be rights are different in different countries.
Yeah.
And we have different legal frameworks and different systems. So would my rights of an AI system over here outweigh the rights of someone in a third-party
That's
country?
really interesting. Yeah.
And so therefore, what would happen to that individual? And would we then start prioritising the rights of a system and a piece of technology over that of a human or other biological beings?
Well, touching on that point you made,
Yeah.
you made a really interesting. We had the conversation yesterday, and you were talking about we hold. What was it? We hold a much higher weighting to instances of property damage than we do to instances of physical
Yes.
physical violence on another person.
So I think, let me just, being human and biological, I think I can understand consciously what you're trying to say.
Yeah, please fill in the gaps.
So
on
I'm going to
that
fill in the
one.
gap. So what I think where I think you're going to with this, obviously I can't experience your experience.
Not subjectively, anyway. No,
But
you can only best guess.
yes, I'm best guessing what you're trying to say. If we take an AI object or an AI powered object, be it a robot, a humanoid, a machine which we've created, which we deem has consciousness and therefore has rights, would we prioritize those rights over that of another human being? And would we, in a criminal sense, turn around and say, okay, that's my property or my robot, so therefore would we actually turn around and say, okay, if you damage that, I'm going to punish you more than if you damage another human being?
Is that partly because of its value?
Yes. And as values as a society, and it's not all countries, but in certain societies, we have built a legal system which prioritises property maybe over some of the more biological, organic organisms.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with
Yeah.
it. There was another discussion I was having yesterday with a guy called James Lee, who works at an agency called James Chase, and we were talking about the benchmarks for consciousness,
Yeah.
and whether through our ambitious nature as industrious humans we set a benchmark of X for Susan, the
Yeah.
AI system as it is now. We surpassed that.
There we go. You're humanising it. We're calling it Susan. You can just
Susan.
call it System 1.
System 1, okay, System 1 has a benchmark of X.
Yeah.
Ambitious industrious humans try and beat that, so they have System 2, which has a higher benchmark. And at every turn of benchmarking that consciousness, it's slowly catching up to us, if not overtaking us. And if then we assign a level of rights to that AI based on its perceived level of consciousness, does then the balance start to shift for humans as well, and we reassign rights to humans that we deem to fall below that benchmark of consciousness?
So what you're suggesting is that we actually place AI as having more rights than humans because it has a greater level of consciousness.
Because it has a greater level of consciousness.
So that's a fascinating topic.
Maybe too much for this.
No, it's a fascinating topic because, again, I love and we are starting to do this, is build those metrics around measurement of consciousness, and that's really important. But then going out and saying, does it have greater consciousness than us? That goes into the question of what is consciousness.
I thought we weren't allowed to discuss that today. This is too much of a conversation to get into. Too much of a topic.
It is going down that question of what is consciousness, because actually it's such a broad spectrum.
Yeah.
We haven't necessarily defined it. There's
Yeah.
many theories around what creates consciousness and also what is consciousness. They're two different questions and two different things. But if we look at that, would we even recognise what greater consciousness is than
If we don't
ours?
even understand our own.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Would we be able to recognise it? And I think I believe with this, maybe consciousness arises in a sense which we don't even understand today.
Yeah.
Going back to the whole not being able to recognise it, is maybe it's something which is completely different to how we understand it. And we are still learning about ourselves and the planet we occupy and the universe in which we live in. We are still finding out creatures at the depths of the ocean which live in hostile environments, which we said previously no creature could survive in. Then we find life down there. And so we're constantly being surprised. So I think when it comes to consciousness, we may find surprises at a future date. But going back to your original question of if the AI, would we then have lesser rights than an AI system? I think this is where our guardrails need to come in now, because this is where we need to start looking, going, is having super intelligent AI is massively beneficial to society?
Yeah.
Having
cures for cancer, climate change.
Exactly. All of those things, plus many, many more.
Cows that can live on Mars.
I hadn't thought about that one, but I can see the benefit if we're going to go and
We're
inhabit
going to colonise it.
Exactly. But with, I'm now thinking of a cow in a spacesuit.
That doesn't need a spacesuit. They've been engineered to live on Mars.
Well, there we go. You've gone even further than my imagination. But if we are thinking about the rights of, now I've got the rights of cows on Mars. But if we are thinking about AI consciousness and superseding ours, or the super intelligence, we do have to question as we can get super intelligence which is beneficial without consciousness.
True.
It doesn't need to be conscious. And we can focus on with the right guardrails and also the right motivation. And I think this is quite often where we maybe miss a trick, is when we talk about ethics and we talk about enterprise and we talk about business, sometimes we talk about guardrails as a negative. We talk about it as something which is to stop something happening. How about if we use guardrails to motivate the right behaviour?
And build new incentive structures.
Yes.
Yeah.
To actually encourage what is beneficial to humanity rather than necessarily where the guardrails are just punitive and give you a fine, because that may not necessarily actually really achieve the outcome we want it to achieve. So I do think we need to look at those guardrails. But with consciousness and superintelligence, we've still got a long way to go with superintelligence.
Yeah, but Moore's law has been smashed to bits, and now
we are, but superintelligence also, I mean, we are doing things with AI right now, such as finding new ways of combining drugs and chemicals to create cures for certain diseases.
Yeah.
But actually what we really need to be doing is not just coming up with 150 new ways, because anyone can actually come up with 150 new ways. It also needs to come up with, because a lot of the time it comes up with 150 new ways, and 148 of those new ways we don't have the manufacturing capabilities or processes to develop the drugs and the combinations that it's suggesting. So actually we need to focus it on coming up with those combinations of not only the new ways of adding compounds together to create a drug, but also how do we go about manufacturing it. Sometimes we're rushing too far ahead to humanize it, to make it replicatable to us, rather than actually using it for the tool that it is.
Well, that's the vanity plane.
Yes.
And why do you think we as humans are so fascinated by imbuing technology with a level of consciousness? Is it just because we've all seen Star Trek and want to create data, we want to make it real, or the replicant from Blade Runner, or the thing from Alien 1?
Yeah. I don't think our fascination with technology doesn't just go back a few decades. It goes back millennia. Even to ancient Greek times and Roman times, we were fascinated with humanoid type automatons and what they could potentially mean to society.
Was Aristotle sitting around thinking about that?
He was contemplating it, as he was sitting there. And
was he? You're much better read on Greek mythology than me. I guess you've got the most I can think is a Minotaur, Medusa.
But not even those. But we were looking at humanoid robots, and even in Greek times, in ancient Greek times, they were creating sort of a very complex machinery, which replicated and mimicked. So replicated is too strong a word. Mimicked some of the movements and actions of human beings. And we've always been fascinated with that. And I think that is not, so what we're looking at now is not a new thing, that fascination. And the fear of change and the fear of technology, that's not a new thing either.
No.
It's existed for millennia. So where we are now is really just an evolution of that.
I get that. And shout out to Stephanie Antonian, who said that we went from praying to gods to building gods to being gods. That's actually the other way around, sorry. Believing in gods, to being gods, to building gods. But actually, if we are replicating, I think that the replicating or creating robots to mimic things that we already do is the becoming gods. But then the building gods is your super intelligence overlaid with quantum computing creates something far superior in intelligence and potentially even consciousness than we are. So
can I just challenge that though?
Challenge away.
Because I think we underestimate the power of who we are and our own capabilities. If you think about it, we walk around in our heads, fully portable, 100% movable, a supercomputer. And we underestimate the power of what our brain can do and the amazing achievements and the actions and functions and everything that it does on a daily basis without us even recognizing it. Everything we do unconsciously, let alone what we achieve consciously.
Yeah.
And I think we underestimate that. So we quite often we give deference to technology and say, oh, this is wonderful, look what it can do. Yep, sure. It can do maths far quicker than I can. It can write poetry in Polish, which I can never achieve. But can it do some of the things I do?
Yeah.
No.
But
will it ever be able to because it's got access to a huge array of information. Just because you have access to the Encyclopedia Britannica doesn't mean that you are, super intelligent. It just means you have access to it and you can go and recall that information.
I think it was Jonathan who was talking about AI being not conscious but slightly autistic. So if you mentioned about the subconscious cues that we pick up on, right, which don't exist on the conscious plane.
Yeah.
The conscious plane is everything that's already happened in our brain. It's the next stage of that.
Yeah.
So
it's what our brain wants us to know.
And the rest of it it chucks away or doesn't think that it's
it doesn't need to worry us with.
It doesn't need to worry us with. Now, all of that is just information processing.
Yeah.
The only thing which kicks in a conscious experience of where we can subjectively appreciate it. And some of that subconscious stuff happens without our knowledge.
Yep.
The conscious stuff is obviously stuff we have to reflect on and go, well, I can see now that that Nigel was getting frustrated with that piece of paper, so he moved it away.
Yeah.
I can see, I can get...
But you can experience why I got frustrated by it and why it was a distraction, because you can turn around and go, oh, based on my experience,
But I know we've got to wrap up soon, but we can just, my belief is that we can just imbue algorithms with all of this knowledge. We can just give it background knowledge. We can give it learned experiences. They are just other bits of information.
They are, but does that make consciousness? And this is where, even across the spectrum... Do we then
not overstate our own consciousness?
But across the spectrum, this is the thing. Some people believe that if we give it enough of a backstory, if it appears consciousness, therefore it is conscious.
Yeah, it thinks, therefore it is.
Yes. Some people believe that. Other academics and other scientists turn around and say, no, it needs to be in biological form. You need to have a body which you need to protect, and that's why consciousness arises, because you're trying to protect
the survival
piece. The survival piece. So there's a whole, and then in between that, there's a whole spectrum of different theories.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Which I know we've both researched and read upon.
Haven't brought up
exactly.
for this podcast.
But it is, just because something pretends to be doesn't mean it is.
Yeah.
And we haven't been able to answer that question yet, as in academia or society.
No, we haven't. Well, that brings us to the end. So before the closing statement, who would you like to invite to the podcast?
Ooh, if I could invite anyone?
Well, ideally someone that you can invite, not like anyone.
I thought this was one of those questions where I get to invite like the the South African rugby captain, or
bring people from the dead. No, we can't do that. No, certainly not. I mean, word's been put out to O'Neill Seth.
Yeah.
There's also the guy that wrote His Master and Emissary. I forget his name. But maybe we can loop back and we can put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do that, because there's several which I think it's such a fascinating topic, which we can expand on so much more.
Yeah, I believe we've got loads of people lined up to do the second iteration of this, which is where we can dig into the many facets of what academics believe consciousness is. But as a closing statement, we're living at a truly pivotal moment. For the first time in history, we're building machines that don't just calculate, but seem to think, adapt, and even talk back. We don't yet know if consciousness will ever emerge in silicon or if it's forever bound to living bodies like ours. But if it does, the future we create could be extraordinary. Conscious AI might become a collaborator, companion, or even co-citizen. Or it could challenge us in ways we're not ready for. The choices we make now about ethics, responsibility, and what it means to be alive will shape not just the story of technology, but the story of us.